So here's a shocking statistic. There are more people alive in the world today than that have ever lived throughout entire history. Apparently not in this room, but overall, there are more people alive today. That's just a statistic I found online. It's got nothing to do with this class. So keep a pen handy or your phone, because really, PPC on Amazon is a very diverse topic. Everyone has different numbers. There's a ton of variables that pertain to different accounts. So I really wanted to make this more about a question answer versus presentation, but they wanted a speech. So try to keep your questions written down. Hey there, Abe. And we're going to address it in about 20 minutes. So we'll do a kind of short presentation, and then we'll take questions and answers. So I'm going to start with a question. Let's start with a question. By a show of hands, how many here think that a 10% ACoS is a great number? Okay, good. How many here think that an 80% ACoS is a bad number? All right. So what if I gave you some additional numbers so you can make a more educated guess? So let's take an average Amazon account and say that does $50,000 a month in sales organically. Now, through their ads, they're driving only $1,000. $1,000 a month through ads. They have a 10% ACoS. They're spending $100. 10%. Is that a great number? It's not a great number because they're only driving $1,000 through ads. If they drove way more than that, their overall number of 50,000 would grow bigger. Vice versa. If they're doing $1,000 in ad sales on a $50,000 account and have an 80% ACoS, that's not a bad number. Their spend is bad. They're spending too little. So while ACoS is a very important number, it's definitely not the only number you want to look at. Now, I know we have all kinds of sellers in this room. We have beginners, we have advanced sellers. I'm going to try to give a very broad presentation, and then with a question answer, you can kind of narrow in on how it pertains to you. So if you get bored, bear in mind there are others that probably can use that information. So what is the right ACoS? What's the right ACoS? How do you calculate it? Some experts might tell you to take the price of the product, okay, you divide it by the conversion, times 10, and then you times the amount of clicks, and you divide that by 5. Abe, am I making sense? That's nonsense, because the ACoS that's right is the one that works for you and for your account and that meets your objectives. So we're going to try to look at ACoS in a new way today, and we're going to learn that the last number you want to look at is the ACoS. It's the last possible number to look at when you're running your ad campaigns. So we're going to kind of reverse engineer it and then come out to what is actually the right ACoS. And now we have more than 19 people in the room, so I'm kind of happy. So let's talk about sponsored ads. I feel like a lot of people don't really have a handle on exactly what it means. So if you do, bear with me. Really, the word sponsored ads or advertising is a misnomer, right? It's not an accurate description because it's not advertising. It's a sponsored listing. Now, headline ads do fall more into the advertising, placement, what do they call the placement ads? They do have some other type of PPC that actually is more similar to advertising. Sponsored ads, which is really the most important type of advertising on Amazon, is not necessarily advertising, it's product placement. So it would compare to, let's say you sell a baby product to a large retailer like Target. Now you're on aisle 101, right at the bottom of the aisle where you're turning the cart, no one even sees the product. So you want to get more traction. So there's a couple of things that Target will offer you in terms of product placement. You can pay for extra shelf space at eye level to get optimal display of your product. That's going to cost you, and Target also wants to know that it's going to sell through. They're not just putting any product on that shelf. While it's not that hard to get into the store, it's not that easy, but you could get into the store, but to get it optimal placement, that's where it gets a lot more difficult. Target or the retailer needs to know that you're actually important for that place, and you're going to sell through. And they might charge you for that position as well. They also have what they call end caps or aisle displays where your product will be shown to people passing by the aisle. You get more visibility. You can get a banner. You can get a whole display. And again, if your product doesn't sell through, you're not getting a spot there. Those are typically placed for higher volume sellers, seasonal products that they know are going to sell for that specific time. They have checkout displays. Again, they need to know the product is going to move. The product will sell through at that spot. Now, what happens if you earn those coveted spaces? You get those actual spots, but you don't sell through. Well, they're going to pull it. They're going to pull it off the shelf. They're going to pull it fast. So you kind of have to think of sponsored ads in that same way. It's product placement. Instead of your product listing being on page 51, now it's on the top of page 5. And Amazon is only putting you up there if you're relevant. So number one, it's kind of a chicken before the egg type of thing, because how do you get relevant if you're not getting visibility? So there is some kind of process that Amazon has. Some of it is random, so you can start selling. How many people here sell kitchen widgets? Don't show your hands because you don't want anyone else to know. Nobody. Nobody sells kitchen gadgets? Wow. So you can launch a kitchen knife tomorrow and actually get ad space. So you create an ad campaign. You have one product. It's a kitchen knife or a set of kitchen knives or a salt and pepper grinder. There are hundreds of thousands of those already on Amazon. But you set up an ad campaign, and you might get ranked. When I say ranked, I mean you might get picked up by Amazon to come up for those words. So in most cases, however, if you're going to come into a very saturated category, you're already competing with top sellers in that space. They're buying the ad space. At this point in 2019, everybody's buying ad space. 2 years ago, you would have picked up that spot. Today, you're not getting it so easy. So chances are, you're going to create a campaign, and it's not even going to spend like $1 a day because you're not picking up clicks. Amazon is not putting you there. Now, if they do put you there, and you have a good product, you probably will get clicks. And they have some kind of random arrangement where some brand new products actually take off. I saw a kitchen gadget this holiday season that took off like crazy with sponsored ads. I was shocked. You want to plan for that appropriately. Obviously, you want to source really innovative and good products. But the gist of it is that you're not going to get shown just because you want to get shown. So you all know you can put $1,000 in your daily budget, and then it spends $3 because Amazon has to first rank you. They have to say, this seller and his product, the seller is a good seller, the product is a good product, customer service is great, their listings are optimized, they're prime, they're brand registered, they have storefronts, all these other variables that hopefully you'll hear from, or you've heard from other speakers here today and throughout the Amazon world. They're all very important. So number one, you don't just show up. There is a certain percentage of randomness. You might show up, but you don't just show up. Now, once you show up, you better deliver on your promise as a brand. So you better have a good product, it's better be packaged right, because once you show up, Amazon wants to see it clicking and converting. So, very important to know this. I get a lot of questions from people. They say, I'm trying to rank through ads. People say, hey, just run PPC, it's not going. Well, if you're selling another salt and pepper grinder, you're not going to get shown. You just won't. So it's important to know that Amazon PPC isn't just an advertising module, it's actually product placement. And you have to have a good product, and you have to index well and come up well in order to get placed. So I want to jump into an account here and show you some things. There we are. There's a quiz here. Okay, right. So I'm going to jump into an account. We have a test account that we use for courses, different things, for testing. The first number, now what I want to show you today is give you a good overview of how you should look at your own account. So I'm going to try to go backwards, take a look at what I'm doing, and try to apply this to your account. So number one, we're going to analyze the numbers and see what's a good ACoS and how do you get to that good ACoS? How do you define that good ACoS? And then we'll talk a little bit in detail about how to set up a campaign, all the new options, what they mean, and when to use them and how to use them. If you look at this account, last 30 days, it did $32,000 in sales. Okay. So we'll go to the campaign manager. Last 30 days, it did $8,000 in ad sales. That's roughly 25% of total sales. Abe, remember? 25% is a pretty good balanced number of ad sales to total sales ratio. When you're in a brand new account, you expect, if your advertising catches on, you expect the bulk of your sales to come through ads, because you're not ranked well organically. You're selling through the sponsored listing. Your actual organic listing or your regular listing is on page 100. So the sales that you're getting, chances are they're coming from ads. So there's at a new account, you can be doing 80% of the sales through ads or 90% of the sales through ads, and it still makes sense. Once an account kind of gets into its rhythm and it's months and years old, if you're pushing more than 25% of ad sales, of gross sales through ads, typically you're capturing some sales there that you would have gotten organically. Once you're doing X amount of sales, your product has reached its prime, whatever that is, whether it's 100 sales a month or 1,000 sales a month, and some products will just stay at 100 sales a month, then if you're pushing 50, 60, 70 of those sales through ads, that just means you're picking up, instead of the customer going down the page, at the bottom of the page where your organic listing is, or maybe on the second page, you're picking it up on the first page. You're paying for sales that you would already have. This is not data that Amazon will tell you or anyone else will necessarily tell you. This is generally what healthy accounts look like, about 25%. Now, if your brand is really built out and it's super optimized and you're getting a lot of traffic from outside of Amazon, in that case you probably won't be generating more than 10% ad sales to total sales. And that makes sense because your products are probably on page 1 and you don't want to advertise that aggressively, as it takes a couple of clicks to convert anyway. The average customer will browse a couple of listings before they buy it. But overall, if you're pushing more than 25, 35%, your spend is going to end up being too high, even at a 10% ACoS. If you're pushing 50% of your sales through ads, that 10% ACoS becomes too high. So if you look at the spend was $1,800, $1,880. So $1,880 out of 32,000, it's below 5%. Not sure what it is exactly, actually. Anyone knows? 1,880, 2,000, 20,000, whatever it is. I think it's in the 5% range of total sales. So, number one, as a company that's selling at Amazon, with all the fees that Amazon has, it's very important that you allocate a budget for marketing for Amazon ads. Now, once you create that budget, that number is real. Like, you know, on a $20 product, I can give away $1, not 1 penny more. That's 5%. Perhaps you have $2. That's 10%. That's the number that you have to stick with. That's your spend. And your ACoS always goes back to that number. So let me explain. In this scenario, the last 30 days, $1,800 of spend on an account that does $32,000, which is about 5%. I did that calculation yesterday. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. Now, there's an ACoS of 23%. That tells me that if I have 5% margin dedicated to advertising, then 23% ACoS is a good ACoS. That's it. I'm spending where I need to be spending. Not more, not much less. Maybe I can spend a little bit more. And the ACoS is actually a derivative number. It's just a number that happens from X amount of clicks, X amount of sales. I can't really change that number by virtue of just trying to change it, by removing keywords and adding keywords. You can play around with that number, but every account and every product will fall, excuse me, it'll fall into a certain number. There are products that will fall into a 10% ACoS. If it's a higher ticket price product, it's going to cost you approximately the same amount of clicks, but you're selling your product for a lot more, so you can have a lower ACoS. The products that you're selling for $10, you're probably going to have a higher ACoS, even if you're selling volume. And you know where that kind of falls on your account. Like, if you've tried for the last 6 months to bring your ACoS down and it's still in the 40% range, you know that 40% is approximately where it's going to be. Therefore, you got to focus on your spend. Is your spend where you want it to be? Does that make sense? Anybody? No? Because as a seller, you want to look at your profit and how much are you spending. In this scenario, $1,800, great. So if you're spending $10,000 on an account that does $30,000 of sales, unless you have a very rich uncle that's helping you out, like, you got to stop that because you're going to be bankrupt in a month, right? So you have to look at that spending number first. And then you want to worry about ACoS. If it's high, why is it high? Let's try to bring it down. If it's low, great. We can spend more money. We can target a higher ACoS. What does that mean? So ACoS, you want to use it as a lever. What that means is that in this account, for example, let's say I told you that I want to spend 10% of $30,000 a month on ads, which would be a $3,000 spend. All right? So this is you. You're looking at the account, right? $1,800. You got to bring this up to $3,000. You have an ACoS of 23%. The first thing you want to do is you want to raise your ACoS target and say, if I want to double the spend, the first, quickest, and easiest way to do that is to double the ACoS. So I'm going to take a product that I have running. At a 25% ACoS target, you see there I put the target right in the campaign name. So I know that's the number I'm playing with. And you see the target is 25%, and it's actually running at 20%. That's just how it's been running. So I want to double down on that, and I want to say, I'm going to add keywords that are converting even at 50%. Because if I do that, and instead of spending 450, I'll spend 900, and as discussed, I have more money to spend, then I don't care if my ACoS will be higher. I will drive more sales in my ads, which hopefully will drive more sales organically. Now, I should have said this at the beginning. There are exceptions to every single rule on Amazon. Nothing is absolute. Everything that I say here today is full of exceptions. I'm trying to turn that way, but I'm looking at my screen. So there's exceptions to every single rule. Overall, this is a general guideline, and I'll be happy to take your questions. So if I'm going to be adding money to this, I should increase the sales, because right now I'm restricting it. I'm not just running it, letting it run wild. I'm restricting it to a 25% ACoS. How do I do that? So you guys know how to pull a keyword report. I'm assuming you pull a search term report and you look at the history of every keyword, and you'll see keywords. I would recommend you do this every 2 weeks. Pull a search term report, and I would look at 4 columns. There's 14 columns. I would look at 4 columns. I would look at the search term, the campaign name, clicks, and ACoS. That's it. 4 columns. Nothing else. Conversions. Don't look at conversions. It's irrelevant. It's totally irrelevant. Look at sales. You want to sell. You don't want to convert. Unless you're not Jewish, you might want to convert. So when you do that, you look at a keyword over the last 2 weeks that had at least a couple of clicks. It converted. There was a sale because there's an ACoS. We eliminate all the rows, by the way. Just eliminate all the rows. Just look at search term, campaign name, search term, clicks, and ACoS. And then when you do that, you'll see there are a bunch of keywords with ACoS. That means they had a sale, there's a spend, there's an ad cost of sale, and there's a lot of keywords without ACoS. Now, the ACoS number there, on a 25% target campaign, like this campaign, I had a 25% target, I'm only going to add keywords that converted below 25%. So if there was a keyword in there, and let's look at some keywords here, but if there was a keyword in there that was at 50%, I didn't add that keyword. Now, I could have potentially had a sale in the next 2 weeks. So I'm going to pull it every 2 weeks, look at the keywords, and now based on what my ACoS target is, I'm going to add those keywords into the campaign. So when you raise your ACoS target, you're increasing your sales. You're adding more keywords that converted, even though it was a higher cost. And by the way, a 50% target ACoS can come down to 30% because it grows exponentially. So if you have a bunch of orders now, instead of 2 orders, suddenly you have 10, your cost might go down. So that's one part of it. So you're adding keywords that either have higher ACoS when you're trying to aim higher, when you want to spend more, and vice versa. When you want to spend less, you want to target lower cost keywords. So that's one part of it, right? The other part of it is actually looking at your performance, and it's hard to see over here, but let's say this keyword here, it's at 18%, great, right? Let's say this keyword was at 87%, right? It's 87%. What are you going to do? Your target is 50%. Well, lower the spend. Lower it to 50 cents, whatever. Look at the suggested bid. The suggested is $1.50. You want to get the same keyword. You want to keep it in there because it had sales. Lower the cost per click. That's the basic premise. And of course, a keyword with 4 clicks, 0 sales, you can get rid of it, right? You want to get rid of it as long as your ACoS is too high. If your ACoS is lower, it's at 8%, I'm targeting 50%. I'm going to keep that keyword in here. Maybe it's going to work in the next 2 weeks. Now, never look at the words themselves. Never look at the words. And I do this as a company that manages hundreds of accounts, obviously the words, we manage millions of items. The words mean absolutely nothing to me, right? But even to you, where the words are actually very important, you get very caught up. It's a magnetic doorstop. Doorstop hardware, how can I get rid of that word? There are hundreds and thousands of words. There are 350 million people in the United States. There are so many people shopping. Don't worry about the words. Get rid of words. You'll get new words tomorrow. So every 2 weeks, you're removing words and adding words. Do that consistently. That's the process of raising your ACoS, lowering your ACoS. Now, how do you start a campaign? How do you get keywords? Now, a lot of people do use different keyword search tools to research the right keywords to add. And nothing wrong with that. At first, when you add keywords, you can add as many keywords as you want, because ultimately, the ones that will shine, that will perform, every 2 weeks, you're reviewing it. And you're pulling new keywords every 2 weeks. I would say to clean these keywords, to lower the bids and to raise the bids, you should probably do it once a week. But you might want to look at a 2-week date range. So if it's Tuesday, let's see. Try to keep a two-day buffer there. Where are we here? Something like that, right? So you want to look at 2 weeks and see the last 2 weeks, how has it been performing? This way, you're going to eliminate, if you do this once a week, you're going to eliminate any crazy spending keywords. You're not going to have a keyword that spends 150 clicks and 0 sales. You most likely will catch it if you do this once a week. Now, adding keywords, we're going to do a little experiment here. So, number one, you'll see that we have several ad groups here. There's a mix, there's a phrase, there's exact, and there's a broad. When I start a manual campaign, I start a mix ad group. I don't know what's going to perform. I want to add as many keywords as I can, possibly. Once the campaign is running and you have historic sales, you have performance, you want to divide it. So every product, so there's 8 or 9 products in here, every product should be advertising multiple times. So you're creating a campaign for a group of products. Now you can do this for one product, depending on how much time you have. If you have 100 products, you're going to set up a separate campaign for each SKU. I mean, you better have time to manage it. I would say group them together into groups of products that respond to the same search terms. So if you're selling kitchen, what did we say, salt and pepper grinders, and you have all kinds of salt shakers, just put them together. You don't have to set up a separate campaign because they're all responding to the same search terms. So eventually you want to set up different ad groups, one for phrase, one for exact, one for broad, and when you're pulling keywords, we're eliminating the ad group column. We're just looking at the campaign. Any keyword that came from a campaign, and I should say that, of course, you want to have an automatic campaign as well. So we'll set up, this is a doorstop, right? So we'll set up an automatic doorstop campaign and a manual doorstop campaign. And when you pull the report, you want to pull any keyword that converted. It might have converted in auto, or it might have converted in broad, but you want to take those words and apply it in a phrase group as a phrase match type, an exact group as the exact match type, and in the broad group as a broad match type. And then as you're reviewing it every week, you want to be able to eliminate those that didn't perform. Perhaps that word only performed in a broad, it didn't perform in an exact. So don't listen to rules that people say auto to phrase and then to exact and then to broad or whatever. There's all these formulas out there. You never ever know. Every single product will perform differently for every different match type. So if you have 3 products or 10 products or 100 products, every single one, look at your campaigns, there's not one match type that does better than others. Therefore, you want to diversify, and you want to separate into ad groups like this. You're giving yourself adequate coverage. You're giving yourself more coverage versus keeping it in one ad group. Another advantage to this is, and I'm trying to cover a lot in a little time, another advantage is that you can negate words specific to the ad group. So if a phrase, if the word that you added, let's say the word was salt and pepper shaker, and you added that word into phrase, into broad, into exact, because it converted in auto, let's say. Now in phrase, it's converting terribly. You got 30 clicks, 0 sales in 2 weeks. That's terrible. So anything above 15 clicks, 0 sales is like a very bad word. I would try to keep it at 20. 20 clicks is negative. You want to turn it negative only in phrase. So when you have them all in one ad group and you turn it negative, it's going to apply to everything else. You can have salt and pepper in phrase, salt and pepper in broad, salt and pepper in exact, then you hit negative, and that's it. You just killed a good keyword. So you want to keep them in separate ad groups. When you build the original ad group, the mixed ad groups, what you can do is you can use Amazon's auto-suggest. So you're going to add keywords, and it's going to give you some suggested keywords, right? Fetching, right? So the suggested, if you hit add all, that's only broad. You want to start off with broad, exact, phrase, as much as you could, right? So do a quick copy paste. Let's see if I can do this here. And try to enter it, okay? Now, they just picked up another word, right? You do this with a bunch of words, right? So you'll select all keywords. You go back, and you do a magnetic door holder. Let's try that. Now you got a whole other bunch of words. So say you do this 10 times, right? You get 100 keywords in here. You copy it, you add it in broad. Keyword already added. Paste, you add it in phrase. So what you did here is, and then you added an exact, right, whatever. So what you did here is you're starting out a campaign with good suggested keywords. That is how Amazon adds these keywords, by searches, by actual searches. That's how they add those suggested keywords. And you've added in broad, phrase, and exact. Once you start pulling your reports and you have clear numbers, keywords that converted, you're going to separate it, create a new ad group for broad, a new ad group for phrase, a new ad group for exact, and eventually you want to get rid of this mix ad group that's just there just to get started. Let's look at placements real quick because it's important, and I think we can take questions. So number one, dynamic bids, right? Down only, up and down, fixed bids. Obviously, up and down is Amazon. So you're bidding $1, and then Amazon is going to raise your bids by a maximum of 100% in real time. When your ad may be more likely to convert to a sale. So of course you want that, and then you want them to lower the bid when it's not likely to convert to a sale. But if you're aiming for a 25% ACoS and your campaign is at 50%, you don't want to give it more. You're not trying to be more aggressive, so you're going to go for down only, right? Or you might go just for fixed bids. So this is kind of like, I would say, on a monthly basis, you go in here and you look at this campaign, and you have a 25% target and it's running at 50%. Oh no, let's go to down only. And you would do the same thing by placement. So placement goes on top of the dynamic bids. So you bid $1, Amazon will go up to $2, and now it'll go up to 900% if you let it, to get the top of first search page. Now, conveniently, they put the ACoS here. So if I'm aiming for 50% and it's only at 21%, I'll just go to 100, right? So I'm going to always look at the results. Again, I would do this once a month. Look at these results and say, hey, can I add more money? Oh, maybe I'll go to 200, right? Now, if you're aggressive and you have a rich uncle, go to 900. But you got to play with it and you got to look at the results. I think we covered the most important things of Amazon PPC. The most important thing of all is to be on top of it. Clean your keywords once a week on a 2-week block. Add keywords every 2 weeks. Add those negatives. Check your placements. Check your dynamic bidding. And don't get obsessed about keywords. And another quick tip here is, because that same keyword that you're obsessing about, like we discussed before, magnetic door stop, door hardware, it's so relevant. Well, you already have that keyword in a phrase or an exact or in a broad. So if this one isn't performing, don't worry, the other ones are performing. Another quick trick that you can do is to set up another campaign with an unlimited budget for low bids. I'm sure a lot of you may do that. I would start at 40 cents Most products, that's a pretty good bid. 40 cents. So you create the same campaign, but you just call it your low bid campaign. So if it's a doorstop campaign, it'd be the low bid campaign. Same broad phrase exact, lower bids. And never go higher. Never go higher. So that campaign is always going to be running. It's always going to be in budget. And it's always going to be below your ACoS. And if it's higher, lower that bid. Go down to 10 cents on a bid. Usually, that campaign is going to run within your ACoS target, and it's going to generate a decent amount of sales, for sure. Thank you, guys. Questions? I take 2 clicks. If it's 2 clicks, had a sale, add it. Nothing to lose. Either it's going to start doing more or it'll do less. If it does less, it's not going to cost you anything. It's just 2 clicks. So I would add it at 2 clicks. Small sample sizes skewing the results. In what way? You have to create some kind of rules that you're just going to go by. So if you're going to obsess over each and every keyword and say, aha, it got 5 clicks and 0 sales, but maybe it's a good keyword. By the way, 5 clicks, 0 sales on the report, personally, I turn that negative in auto. Because in automatic, I don't know what Amazon's doing. So I want to give them the least amount of spend possible, and whatever performance they could do, whatever sales they do generate, great, I'll take those keywords. So 5 clicks on a regular ad group that's not doing, let's say in 2 weeks, more than 500 clicks. If a broad ad group or any ad group you're running is doing like 1,000 clicks in 2 weeks, that's a considerable amount of traffic. And then you want to loosen up whatever rules you have. Personally, I use 5 clicks as, it should have converted. Now, if it's a $1,000 product, you're selling a mattress, it certainly needs more than 5 clicks to convert. So you don't want to get too hung up with it's a small sample size. Overall, you're looking at your account. You kind of create these rules on the trends that you see within your account. I don't know. I never look at conversions. Meaning, are you not selling? If you're not selling, you have a problem with your listing. You have a tremendously high ACoS. There's a problem with your listing. There may not be. You may have. There is a problem, but not necessarily can you fix the problem. You may have an incredible listing, a really good product. For whatever reason, you can't always wrap your mind around it and just move on. Your job as Amazon sellers is to create more products, not to find hacks, not to magically do all these sales and just become rich overnight. Find more products. If you have 10 products, go to 20. I've done it, so don't look at me funny. I've done it. I've found products, I've identified products in a niche that there aren't 100 competitors, and I've created products very successfully. So you have to always be looking. If a product isn't performing well, get rid of it. That's all you can do. Once your ABCs are done. You got great pictures, the content is good, it's EBC, you've done everything right. You can't obsess over conversion. Or you can pay some Chinese hacker to get you like 500 reviews. It's expensive though. And you can get caught. Right. Which is why I'm saying there's exceptions to every single rule. And the 25% is when you're kind of in the rhythm of things. Like every month you have an average amount of sales. you don't want to jeopardize that number. You don't want to just start spending more money if it's not going to bring you more sales. Obviously, if you're running, and there are no tricks, there are no ways to jumpstart that. So if I'm running an account, let's say this account, it's running at $30,000 every month. It's only doing $3,000 or whatever the number is through ads. There's no mechanism that's suddenly going to make it do a lot more. And in most cases, even if you spend more, it won't necessarily, like, I might be capping out with doorstops. Like that's as many I'm going to do. So, of course, you have to do this on a monthly basis. You got to look at your total sales every single month. It's going to change, and it does affect. So that 25% worked for last month. This month it might be something else. So every single month you want to do that analysis and look at, okay, and you can do that on a product level as well. How many doorstops did I sell? I sold a total of 200. How many came through ads? Only 10. How much did I spend? I spent $5. So I got to look at my total sales, $1,000. I only spent $5. Great. I'm going to ratchet that ACoS up to 100%. I don't care. And then review it at the end of the next month. And of course, if it's spending $50,000 a day, you're going to catch it. You have to keep your eye on things. I'm the Amazon ad king, and Mr. Rabbi Wordy put the Amazon king there. So finding products. Well, I'm a passionate person, so I think you have to be a little bit passionate about the products. So if you're passionate about a space, maybe you're an artist, maybe you have a hobby, I would go all in on something that you can connect with. As much as you don't want to connect with a product once it's in your warehouse, if you're connected to the industry, to the target category, you'll enjoy going to those trade shows. You'll enjoy going to those factories. I used to be in plastic plates. I hated it. I hated going to China, right? But if I would be in love with plastic plates, I would go to as many shows as possible. I'd go to as many factories as possible, and it definitely will help you in your overall game to be, somehow connected to what you're doing. The other tip I can say is stay within a category, even if you're not in love with it and you're doing plastic plates. Focus your sourcing efforts on that category. This way, you're going to one trade show, you're not going to 10, you're dealing with one factory, you're not with 10. It helps you, I think, in the long run, a lot. Sure. Why do I have a mic? So I recently spoke to a guy, and obviously this class dealt with mostly with private label, and he says whenever he sponsors, he notices himself getting the buy box more. I don't know if that's accurate. Are you helping someone else? If it's I'm assuming Out-of-Box has kind of like a rhythm of sales. That's what it does, 30,000 units a month, and that's it. Nothing that you're going to do is suddenly going to make it sell more. People aren't buying more Out-of-Boxes because you're advertising, but you might get more sales. If you do get more sales, your competitors will also get more sales because it's ranking better. Great. I mean, you don't lose out if other people are doing more sales. So the question is, will you get more sales? And with branded products, unless you have, when you're reselling, unless you have like almost exclusive on the buy box, and like it's almost your private label, it's almost like a license situation, then it pays to advertise. Otherwise, typically, whatever you can get, you'll sell. So if you're selling Sony speakers that are very high in demand, people are going to be buying it. You don't necessarily need to. I mean, I've seen people run ads on iPads and on name brand electronics, and they actually start doing a lot more sales because Apple does have 1,001 products. So, and they do have competition. So if you're buying earbuds and you're selling earbuds and you don't advertise it, well, maybe another brand is advertising it, and I've seen the weirdest things happen. People could be looking for Apple earbuds, but they will buy a cheapy earbuds. You never know. So if you have control of the product and you have a lot of inventory and you have good margins, go ahead, advertise it. I am never concerned. So good question. Will broad, phrase, and exact bid against each other? Amazon says it doesn't. My data is it runs well. Like these accounts are running profitably. Can you get 2 more sales in exact if you didn't? I don't know. Like it's an unknown, but you're not losing out. But the more you run, the more you'll gain. You don't want to run too much because it takes time to sit there and manage it. So there's no concern that it's. Oh, you mean to drive up the bid prices? No. In broad, phrase, and exact, sometimes the same keyword will be different prices as well, and it fluctuates. But officially, according to Amazon, they've said this a number of times. You can't compete with yourself. Like they don't let you compete with yourself. Now, we know that they're making more money from advertising, and cost per clicks have gone up across the board, and it's costing more money. You want to limit that, but keeping broad, phrase, and exact separately helps you a lot. Anyone else? You mean percent of ad sales to total sales? I would say somewhere in the 35% range. For active products, for products that are actively selling. And then it's up to your margin. So if you've got 40% to spend on advertising because you have a 2,000% markup, by all means. So always look at that first number, the spend. How much are you spending? Can you spend more or do you have to spend less? And then the ACoS follows. I think we're... All right. Thank you guys very much. I hope you learned something. Feel free to approach me at the booth. I'm with Connect Books. We have a fantastic program that'll help you manage your QuickBooks.